Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sports Today. My name is Ridhima Pathak. Now, social media is a very interesting thing. You've got a new name every day and a new controversy every day. But sometimes there are certain names that pop up. Sometimes it's just not bearable to be listening to those names and certain allegations that must be reported and must be also looked at in a very objective fashion. And something very recently has been making rounds like that. Sourav Ganguly has been around the social media for an allegation of being an honorary member of the BCCI, and he is linked up with big brands which are direct competition to some of the brands that the BCCI is associated with. I have Boria Majumdar, we've got Vidishput Singhania and Deep Das Gupta joining us in sports today. Now, Boryada, explain to me what has happened before we go to Vidishpat, who is the top sports and gaming lawyer in the country, to explain the scenario to us. Tell me what's happened.
Yeah, thank you, Ridhima. So, firstly, the allegations that have been made against Saurav are serious. So, here on Sports Today, we call spade a spade. We will ask the direct questions, whether it is of Saurav or whether it is of anyone who's asking questions if the questions are unfair. So, we are not going to take sides here. We are going to ask the questions. So, what are the questions? The questions that have been asked since yesterday and senior journalists have asked are basically threefold. One, Saurav is in direct conflict, apparently. By the way, not legal, more moral, is what some of them have said. Some of them have said legal also. So the point is, Saurav is endorsing brands like, My Circle 11, when Dream 11 is a BCCI sponsor. That is question number one. Saurav is endorsing Edu Class or some whatever educational company when Byju's is a BCCI sponsor. So yet again, like Ridhima said, there is a direct conflict, is what is being touted. Number three, that Saurav has not taken care of domestic cricket while there was tremendous expectation. And by the way, Deep Das Gupta is on this show, so I'm going to ask him direct after Vidush comes in. Ridhima and I, we are going to ask all these questions. That do you feel as a cricketer Saurav has not performed up to the expectations and has been a letdown? Is Sourav Ganguly's board, a letdown so far as domestic cricketers are concerned? That his team has not been able to deliver on domestic cricket, has not been able to deliver on promises, has only done the IPL. These are some of the suggestions that have been made or some of the allegations that have been leveled on Saurav, and international examples have been cited. What are the examples? One example that has been cited is that of Sebastian Coe. We will come back to the Sebastian Coe example also. And as I said, there needs to be both sides of the story. It is important
Right.
that Saurav also has his side of the story, and all the allegations are properly proved, Riddhima. So that's what the story is all about. Over the next half an hour or so, you will get all the answers.
Right, Boryada said. That's the reason why we've got Vidushpat here. So, Vidush, on paper, please explain to me, under the Constitution, as an office bearer of the BCCI, can you earn out of the ecosystem of cricket and have an association with brands directly associated and indirectly associated with BCCI?
And is
So,
there a
thank you.
conflict, Vidush?
Yeah, I think that's what I want to address. What is a conflict? A conflict is where, because of a position in BCCI, either actual or maybe perceived, you are able to benefit commercially from your association. So, suppose issues pertaining to academies come in, that if you are sitting in the position in BCCI and you have a own academy, then you will be able to influence selection, right? So that is considered as a conflict. Suppose you own a company which is a event management company, and that has a contract with BCCI, and you are an office bearer, then that is a conflict, because you are influencing a decision in the sense of giving certain advantage to a company vis-a-vis BCC, your position in BCCI. No, I don't see a conflict here itself, because here Saurav is endorsing a particular brand, which is a fantasy sports brand, uh, in an individual capacity, and there is an official broadcaster of BCCI in another capacity. The official broadcaster of BCCI will have a contract. Now, in that contract, and as all lawyers do, and all commercial guys do as well, you clearly define what is the role, where the exclusivity of a particular sponsor is, what rights he is getting from that, and each right is paid for. Nothing comes free. I'm sure BCCI lawyers and commercial guys have negotiated. So if they have not actually negotiated a particular exclusivity, say for a particular gaming company, or for say for a purposes of broadcast, advertisement broadcast, only Dream 11 ads will be showing exclusively on broadcast. If that is not negotiated and that is not what they are paid for, then where is the conflict of interest coming in? That is the first issue that comes in. Second issue that comes in is your aspect that, listen, we have players going, players have individual companies endorsing them. Say a Nike is endorsing a particular player, or Adidas is endorsing a particular player. Now if BCCI endorses or takes sponsorship from another company, then that company is only going to get exclusivity for all events that are under the BCCI, and not into the player's life and players everything that he does, right? So if, yes, if Saurabh was endorsing my Circle 11 or whatever he is doing in a BCCI event, then I agree that could be raised as a conflict of interest, and that is not allowed. But if he is not endorsing it within a BCCI event, but independently of his own, and he is a star, he's been an Indian cricket captain, he's a star. If he's endorsing it on his own, not in the BCCI's time, then how is that a conflict? I don't see that as a conflict itself. I don't even see it as a legal issue if it is not written into a contract. So though I don't, as I said, I don't see a particular conflict there. Moral conflict, again, that's a very, very large issue. Every person has their own moral and then they decide their own conflict. But the fact that we are recognizing that fantasy sports is a form of entertainment and it is legal, and it can be endorsed. If the fact that BCCI is also allowing fantasy sports to advertise does not I think you addressed the moral issue there. The BCCI is okay with it. Then I don't think there's an issue for Saurabh to endorse it as well. So as I said, legally I don't see a conflict arising. Morally also I don't see a serious conflict arising. So where is the issue really?
Okay, I have a question. But does this open a can of future conflicts and loopholes that people could take advantage of?
Of course, Ridhima, I think, and as Boria will agree, lawyers will, some lawyer will find the conflict and then some lawyer will try to get you out of it. But fortunately, we have an ombudsman in the BCCI who's supposed to decide on the conflict. And then whatever decision he takes is binding on the BCCI and all its members, including office bearers. So these things will keep developing, like the law has kept developing for the last 60 years, 80 years, or I don't know from when. And there will be some loopholes, and then the judiciary will plug in, and then there will be another legislation. This is an ongoing process.
Right. Yes, Burida. Burida?
Yeah,
Can you hear
see,
me?
I will say three and four things before we, yes, I can. I'm saying I
Yeah.
will say two or three things before we can go to deep, one by one. Vidush just said if the company, in question here, so the company in question here is Dream 11. And we will name people here. As I said, let's be completely transparent. That the company in question here is Dream 11. And Saurav is endorsing a rival brand, My Circle 11. So what is Dream 11 stand? Let us break it on sports today. We have spoken to Dream 11. We have spoken to senior management, founder, co-founder, all of the stakeholders at Dream 11. And their stand is this is an BCCI internal matter. We have no issues with Saurav endorsing My Circle 11. This is a repeatedly they have said, by the way, on record. We are saying it on sports today. Harsh Jain has said this is a BCCI internal matter. We have no comments on this issue. So that is the Dream 11 stand. Vidush Singhania asked the question. We have just said it. Okay. Number two, I don't know how many of you know, but after these questions were raised, I actually tried to figure out and said, by the way, important questions. Like one of the articles that came out yesterday mentioned the Sebastian Coe issue. And there, if you go to the net, you will see that a lot of articles came out in November of 2015, which said that Sebastian Coe stepped down from the position that he was in at that point in time, which is in his personal endorsement of Nike, based on certain allegations that were made against him that he had helped Nike or that city of Eugene, where a Nike headquarter kind of thing is in, to secure the bid for the IAAF World Championship. That was alleged. Now, Lord Coe, on record when he stepped down, repeatedly emphasized that it is not because of conflict, but because IAAF needs to be freed of all controversy that I'm stepping down. But when you are talking about the SEBCO issue, please remember two things. And I want to make this very clear. Please say both sides of the story. While we are talking about SEBCO stepping down, let us also say this. Number one, Sebastian Coe was the chairman of the London Olympic Games Organizing Committee between 2005 and 2012 for 7 years. Now, as chairman of the London Olympic Games Organizing Committee, is the face, is the number one man. Who is the principal sponsor of the London Olympic Games 2012? Adidas. What was Sebastian Coe? Sebastian Coe was one of the main faces of Nike and was a main face since 1978. Did he continue to be the Nike face as chairman of LOCOG? The answer is yes. Did anybody say conflict of interest? The answer is no. Okay, point number one. Point number two, when he stepped down as chairman of LOCOG in 2012, he became the president of the British Olympic Association. Now, the British Olympic Association is the equivalent of the BCCI in England. Now, as president of BOA, who is their principal sponsor? Adidas. The deal has been renewed till 2024. Now, when Lord Coe was president of BOA, did he continue to be the brand ambassador of Nike? The answer is yes. Did anybody say conflict? The answer is no, because this was a personal endorsement. That is a professional, an institutional issue. So please represent both sides of the story. Is Lord Coe right or wrong? We are not going to tell you. But Lord Coe's issues have to be represented both sides. Now, my final point before I go to Deep. There's plenty more to be broken here on sports today. Plenty more. Byju's. Now, a question has been raised that Sourav was endorsing or has endorsed a rival educational company. And I'm breaking this on sports today. I've spoken to Byju's, and I'm naming him. Atit Mehta, head of Byju's marketing. Baiju Ravindran, founder of Byju's. We have spoken to both. We've spoken to the legal team of Byju's. Sourav Ganguly and Atit Mehta confirms to me on record. We will put out the statement. Our producer, Trisha, can you put out the statement from Byju's, please? We are putting it on record from Byju's for the first time. Sourav Ganguly was approached by Byju's to be their brand ambassador and, alongside Shah Rukh Khan and for a significant period of time. Sourav refused the endorsement because Byju's is a BCCI sponsor. So he did. This is on record. And I can tell you this, having spoken to these brands, because yesterday I called all of Sourav's brands, whichever was in kind of conflict, to figure out and get to the root of this problem. So I'm confirming this. Atit Mehta, go and ask him. He's the marketing head of Byju's. Baiju Ravindran, founder of Byju's. Please go check. Both of them have confirmed to us on record. We are putting that statement out. Sourav Ganguly was approached by them. He refused the ambassadorship because Byju's is a direct, is a BCCI sponsor. That's the statement. Atit Mehta, head of marketing for Byju's, confirmed that they were indeed in talks with Sourav Ganguly and wanted him to be associated with the brand. But eventually the association did not happen because Byju's happens to be a sponsor of the Indian cricket team. He also confirmed that they were keen on having Sourav as a former captain and leader. That's important, by the way, not as BCCI president, but as Vidush said, as a star who's a former captain and leader. Final point before Deep takes over. There's another brand, which is a car manufacturer. I'm not naming the brand, you'll understand. There is only one car manufacturer which is a sponsor of the IPL. So you now know which one. The same car manufacturer had also approached Sourav Ganguly, and I've spoken to them. By the way, the same thing happened. Sourav turned them down because they are sponsors of the IPL. So please represent both sides of the story rather than taking pot shots. If Sourav is at fault, we will say Sourav is at fault and he has to change it. I keep saying this. Questions will be asked. Hard questions will be asked on sports today. So Byju's, Dream 11, My Circle 11. By the way, My Circle 11 endorsement of Sourav Ganguly goes back to his pre-BCCI days. And that gets me to Deep Das Gupta. Deep, the Lodha committee wants cricketers to come in to administration big time. Big time. That is a recommendation. Sourav's My Circle 11 advertisement or endorsement, whatever you want to call it, goes back to before his BCCI times. Conflict, not conflict. What is your sense? Question number one. Question number two. As a former cricketer, do you think he has underperformed as BCCI president big time and has let down domestic cricketers by only doing IPL? Or do you think, I don't want to say a single more thing. Do you think so far, he has not been able to tick the boxes as BCCI president? Give us a candid answer.
Right. To start off with the conflict of interest, because I'm glad I'm here and I wanted to be here to just listen to Vidush because it's confusing, right? What is a conflict? Because straight away, one of the first things that I see is, as a cricketer, all my life, what I've done is played cricket. And I can tell you this, 99% of the ex-cricketers, their sources of income will be through cricket. So on one side, I mean, listen, there'll be very few of us who have started their businesses or whatever, which has got nothing to do with the sport itself. But most of us, our sources of livelihood would be, through cricket, whether it's media work, whether it's coaching, administration, whatever it is, right? And now on the other side, you rightly mentioned, and I've read this, where cricketers are encouraged to come into the administration. Then listen, then on one side you're saying cricketers should be part of the administration and more cricketers should get involved, and on the other side you're saying you can't be part of the cricket ecosystem and making a livelihood out of it. And inherently that is a conflict of interest in itself. That's one of the reasons. I mean, indirectly you're saying, you know what, we don't need you. You go and do your other stuff. You earn your livelihood. We don't want you in the administration, because if you're there in the administration, then you have to find another source of income which has got nothing to do with cricket, and which is so rare. I mean, how many cricketers you've come across are actually got nothing to do with cricket anymore? Very few of them. Most of us, we live because that's all we've done all our lives. We've done is play the sport, right? So that's one. Secondly, the other important thing is we've got to, I think, understand and differentiate between the individual and the group, the team, or the institution. For example, I remember there was this series that I played against England where Reebok was our t-shirt sponsors, but everyone had their own personal sponsorship. Somebody had Adidas, somebody had Nike. Nike wasn't there at that point in time. A lot of them had Reebok personal sponsorships as well. So there are certain things which an individual can do as in an individual capacity, and obviously then there is this commitment which an individual has because he's part of an institution or part of a team. So I think there needs to be people need to differentiate between that and understand there is a difference. And that's what it seems like at this point in time, that conflict of interest. Yes, as Vidush, again, I'm no expert. Vidush is there, and I'm actually here, and I'm glad Vidush is here to explain what exactly conflict of interest is, because, like I said, most of us, our livelihood is from the sport. And as far as this domestic cricket is concerned, listen, we've just started. The Syed Mushtaq Ali is going to start sometime soon. It was supposed to start by the 20th, but obviously it can't, because a lot of as recent as yesterday, I think Mumbai Cricket Association announced its selection committee. I think Salil is going to be the chairman of the selection committee. They still don't have a coach as yet. So obviously it's going to take some time. The states like Bengal and all, where they've started their local cricket. So I think it's going to start. As far as IPL, listen, we all know the importance of IPL. Anyone who knows the working knows how important IPL is for Indian cricket, and that's how it is. And domestic cricket will start. I mean, obviously not 20th of December as suggested earlier on, but I'm sure by first week, at the most by 10th of Jan, it'll start. And then and if everything goes right, vaccination and everything, and if the Syed Mushtaq Ali bubble works, then I'm sure, as far as I know, Ranji Trophy will happen in a different format, obviously. Because of the current situation. And then what I've also heard is there will be under 16, 19 and also women's cricket that will happen. So yeah, I mean, it's too early to say domestic cricket is not been looked after and looked into. I think all that has been happening, and I think it'll be very, very unfair to jump the gun right now, and it's too early.
Right. So what I've understood from what Deep has told me, and this gets me to Vidush again, there is a bit of a gray area when it comes to conflict. Does the new BCCI constitution have regulations over conflict, or is that a gray area?
No, I don't think there's a gray area. I think it's a matter of interpretation that is sometimes people misinterpret it, right? A conflict is where if you are sitting in a position in BCCI or a state body or some body in the cricket, you are able to influence a decision making which will benefit you in your personal capacity or in your institutional capacity. Suppose your own academy or you own something, right? That is where the conflict of issue comes in. Now, as Deep, I think, accurately correctly pointed out, every cricketer who's played cricket will obviously be trying to make a living out of cricket all his life, even after retirement. Now, all engagements in cricket are not in conflict with BCCI or with your state association. You are allowed to do it. Certain conflicts are where you just have to declare it, so that, say, suppose you're a commentator, but you are also a BCCI office bearer, then you may just have to declare it that listen, I am a commentator and I'm office bearer, so therefore take it as rider that I might be just talking pro BCCI, right? That is what we lawyers also do, right? If we represent a particular client, we declare, listen, I represent this client, so my views are going to be kind of in favor of this client. So that's a matter of declaration. You declare it. After that, you're supposed to continue it. The second aspect is where the conflicts are intractable in a manner that you can't work on both those capacities in an independent and in a non-biased manner. That is where you have to step down. So that only the second part is where somebody will have to step down or cannot take up an activity. And there also there are issues like suppose I am eligible for a prize and I'm applying for a prize, but somebody I know or I'm very friendly with or somebody from my family is on the jury of that particular committee. Then what actually will happen is that person will recuse himself when my application comes in. It does not mean that he cannot act in the jury for all purposes. He will have to recuse himself when he's my application. Otherwise, he's still allowed to act. So this is what the issue of conflict is. Some is where it has to be declared. Some is where through some small measures you can still continue by behaving in a rational manner. And somewhere it is intractable where absolutely there is no measure where you can act in an unbiased manner. There you have to step out. So these are the three aspects. Each issue and each case will have to be looked at in an individual manner where it falls.
Yeah, the point about recusal, if you remember, Vidush, the TOPS committee, Mary Com was part of the original formation, Gopi was part of the original formation, and both recused when the discussion about allotting money to Mary Com or to Gopi or to his academy or to his students or whatever, that came up. The Rio 2016 shooting committee, Abhinav Bindra committee, Abhinav was himself a shooter in Rio who had participated. So he actually put that forward for Raninder Singh, but Raninder clearly said that no, self-introspection is important, you can chair. When the Abhinav issue came up, that about his performance, he recused so that the other members of the committee could deliberate. Exactly what Vidush said. Let me also put it on record. The other thing that was said about was JSW, that Sourav Ganguly has multiple positions with JSW. No, he doesn't. So we are putting it on record. Sourav holds no office of profit whatsoever in any JSW company or any JSW board. If he did, we would put it out, because again, I have got clarification from senior JSW management. I asked directly, does Sourav still hold an office of profit of any sort? Does he get paid? Is he a board member? Is he what? Of any sort of any JSW entity, whether it is an IPL team, whether it is whatever, the answer is no. So to say Sourav Ganguly has, again, we are asking each of these questions, that is the president in conflict of ABC? We are, and today I am not giving my opinion. I have my opinion. I am not giving my opinion because Vidush is there to give us the legal opinion. Deep is there to give us the cricket opinion. Riddhima and I are putting across the news. We have said what Dream 11 said. We have said what My Circle 11 has said. We have said what JSW has said. We have told you what the car manufacturing company has said. We have told you what Byju's have said. So we have addressed one by one by one. Now, Deep mentioned women's cricket. This is a very sore point of mine also, that women's cricket has not started. And I have pushed and pushed and pushed the BCCI for an answer. Now, I'm telling you this on record. I have been told that, look, there are three questions here. Allow me 1 minute. Three questions. One question doing the rounds in social media has been that the Indian team was supposed to go to Sri Lanka. They did not after the Women's T20 Challenge. And Saurav's BCCI is a failure. The real answer to that is, and I've questioned, by the way, I've got Mitali, Jhulan and people who I've spoken to. I've spoken to on record. I had spoken to Shmiti also earlier. The fact is, I've spoken to members in the Sri Lankan board. The two boards did not come to a conclusion on quarantine. When people left Calcutta or Bangalore or Hyderabad, they were told that they will travel, but both boards did not come to a conclusion on quarantine requirements in Sri Lanka. That's why the tour was deferred. Point number one. Point number two, the Indian team was supposed to tour Australia and New Zealand. And people are saying men's team is going. Why isn't the women's team going? Fair question. Why they are not going is those boards, not the Indian board. Those boards have written to the BCCI saying those tours were pre-World Cup tours. The Women's World Cup was pushed back by a year by the ICC. So those tours will now happen towards the end of 21 because the host boards, i.e. Australia, i.e. New Zealand, have said that. Number 3, why is it that men's domestic cricket will happen and women's will not? Of course will happen. And it's a very fair question again. I've pushed the board. From what I know, if the Mushtaq Ali bubble is successful, and if the BCCI goes ahead with Ranji Trophy, the BCCI will also host women's cricket. And I can promise you on Sports Today, if it doesn't, we will push the BCCI and hold them and question them and badger them and criticize them, and every day make a case of this, that if men's cricket and Ranji Trophy could happen in February, March, why is it that women's cricket not happening? At this point, I've been told Mushtaq Ali is an experiment. If the 6 bio bubbles work, they will do Ranji Trophy and women's cricket in India in February and March. So that's the news point, Ridhima.
Oh, that's really, really good news. That's fantastic. Now, before we leave, and we're about 5 minutes left into the show, Vidush, a simple common sense question is that if there was really a conflict there, wouldn't Dream 11 by now create an issue?
Absolutely. If they paid for it and they have a certain category excluded for themselves, and if somebody is violating it, they, besides the conflict issue and taking it to the ombudsman, they would have also taken it BCCI to arbitration or court, saying that you need to compensate for us, and they would have taken Sourav also in the court. But the fact that they have not done it means they are aware of their contract, they are aware of the limitations, and they are also aware this is actually not something that is a conflict which they have to take up with Sourav or BCCI. So it's quite a straightforward answer. The conduct of the parties itself also speaks a lot.
All right. So with that, gentlemen, closing statements. Boryada, what do you make of this issue, and what is your deduction out of it?
See, I think journalists need to ask questions. But I also think that when journalists are asking questions, they should represent both sides of the story. Again, I'm saying I'm not going to give an opinion here. Take the Lord Sebco issue. If someone's writing about Lord Sebco stepping down in November of 2015, that same person ought to have written about Lord Sebco being president of BOA and chairman of the London Organizing Committee, because that's representing both sides of the story. Is Sourav in conflict? I think the lawyer has answered that question. Is Sourav's BCCI the epitome of all virtue, and can they do no wrong? Of course not. We will hold them, and ask all the right questions if they don't do women's cricket, if they don't do domestic cricket. It's our job to be the mirror, and we will ask Sourav the questions. We will ask all of the questions. Make no mistake, that's our job. As journalists, we will ask the tough questions, whether it is Sourav Ganguly, whether it is Virat Kohli. I don't care. Simple as that. But when you're holding Sourav and pulling him up, Virat Kohli is part of what? MPL. Mahendra Singh Dhoni and others are part of what? Dream 11. Andre Russell and part of, I was seeing some ad of My Circle 11. Deep Das Gupta, he's a commentator in Dream 11 IPL. He's also in an ad of My Circle 11. Throw him out. Now, where does this damn thing end? No, Deep, for example, if he ever wants to come into administration, I don't think he's a billionaire. He might be. But, if all his employment is stopped, then I don't think he will want to come. I've spoken to Harbhajan Singh today. I asked him on record, Bajju, he said, Dada, मैं क्यों आऊं? अगर आप मेरे से एम्प्लॉयमेंट छीन लोगे तो मैं एज अ क्रिकेटर क्यों आऊंगा? मुझे तो पैसा भी करना है, मुझे फैमिली भी चलाना है. So, this is a very interesting conundrum. कुछ भी हो जाएगा, आप कॉन्फ्लिक्ट बोल के गाली दोगे? No. If there are real questions to be asked, of course ask. If domestic cricket does not happen, ask. Of course, Sourav's BCCI has the bloody job to do it. If he doesn't do it as president, pull him up. Pull him up. If there is no women's cricket by March, do you think we are going to keep quiet on Sports Today? We are going to, if Ranji Trophy happens and no women's cricket happens, you think I'm going to keep quiet? We are going to go mad saying, what is this? We were told this will happen. This has not happened. And if there are no rational explanations given to us, we are not going to sit quietly. No chance. If no domestic cricket happens and the cricketers suffer, of course we will ask these questions, but don't take pot shots on the IPL, for God's sake. I've heard that for the longest time, and that is the worst thing to do. IPL sustains Indian domestic cricketing structure. Players get money, associations get money, the cricketing ecosystem runs because of the IPL. So don't take pot shots at the IPL. That is a cheap publicity stunt. Deep, you have the last word before Ridhima closes it.
Yeah. Deep, actually, amongst all of us, you have faced this dilemma probably the most. So you...
Yeah, Ridhima, listen, somebody asked me about in the association, because now we have voting rights as well, right? That's a really good thing that has happened recently. Is international cricketers, they have voting rights. Somebody asked me, would you want to join administration? I said, listen, I would love to contribute, but I can't, because then what I have to do is I have to leave everything aside, and then who feeds my family? How do I feed my family? I mean, yes, I might have a cushy position in CAB or BCI, wherever, but that's an honorary job. So I still have to pay the bill. So, yeah, I mean, someone like me, even though if I'd want to, I can't get into administration of cricket because I can't leave my job. So that's one. Secondly, I mean, listen, we as cricketers, ex-cricketers, all we've done is play the sport. So naturally, our go-to after retirement sources of income or livelihood would be from cricket, directly, indirectly. We can overnight start, be a marketing executive or a sales executive. Not too many of us have that capability, at least not me. Business wise also, I mean, listen, businesses, most of us would get into some businesses which is also directly or indirectly related to cricket. As far as domestic cricket is concerned, listen, yeah, I mean, it has to happen, as simple as that. I mean, if domestic cricket does not happen, that's going to be huge. That's going to be massive for cricket in India. And IPL, I mean, listen, we all know IPL is the favorite whipping boy of everyone. I mean, if something goes wrong, anything goes wrong, it's because of IPL. So I mean, it's all right. I think by now, at least I've got used to people abusing IPL for everything and anything under the sun, which does not make sense to me anymore. But that's that. But my only thing is this. The other important thing is it's important, as Boria mentioned. I'm sure Vidush will also back me on this. It's important to ask questions, because in the past things have happened which shouldn't have happened. So it is important to ask questions, and that's the reason there's an ombudsman there as well. And it's great that Vidush is here to clarify a few things, because some of the things that he's mentioned I wasn't aware of, and I'm at least I know little better now hearing from Vidush.
This is really good, and it's actually been a very, very interesting session. Now, before we close, Vidush, we've got two questions for you. One is from me and one is from our viewer. I'll start with the viewer. The viewer is asking, can you please clarify, this is Pradyu Vaikunth, can you please clarify if BCCI is a government entity or a private entity?
BCCI, I think, is very clear. It's not a state under the law. It is a private entity, but it performs certain government functions which are akin to public functions. And therefore, those public functions are subject to writ petitions under the Code to Article 226. I think the courts, including Supreme Court, has clarified it. And they've also ended up saying that till the time the government comes out with a regulation, this is how it will be conducted. But they've also clarified the government can come out with a regulation on it.
Right. Okay. All right. So I hope that clarifies Pradyu's question. And before I close, since you are a sport and a gaming lawyer, one of the top in the country, when a gaming brand, and India is a new country now, we're accepting gaming platforms, left, right, and center. So when a gaming brand has a top cricket expert who says, "Come play against my team," so doesn't that give an edge to the cricketer, at least in the mind of the viewer, that his team selection is going to be the best, and I play against that where he has an insight to the team already?
So I would be agreeable to you if you were talking about sports betting. Yes, then that statement would have been correct, in the sense that you have the inside knowledge of what the team selection is going to be, and how the team, you are aware of various strategic issues. But when you are really playing a fantasy sport, the selection closes a certain time before. You're actually choosing 11 players or 13 players, batsmen, bowlers. You're getting different points. I don't think it really makes a difference, even if you have an inside knowledge. Yes, inside knowledge may give you about 2-3%, 5% advantage. Yes, to that extent you may. But then I think that was something advantage that all cricketers would have against a normal person like me anyway. Deep would understand batting, bowling, and fielding much better than what I would understand.
Okay. Let me take this from Vidush. A cricketer playing fantasy, and I will make this claim. A cricketer playing fantasy 99 times of 100 will lose against me, because the cricketer will not be able to win in fantasy. It's a different game. It has a different skill set. I'm making this claim on air. Go play fantasy with me. Come, open challenge. Any cricketer have inside knowledge. Come and play. You will not be able to win. You will use your cricketing knowledge. Go anyone. Deep knows that. So anyone, open challenge. Come and make your team. Apply the basic cricketing premises in a fantasy game without using the fantasy skill sets. Come and win against me. You will not win. I play this every day for the last 4 years, and it's a different skill set and a different knowledge base.
Perfect.
But one more thing. Sorry, just that inside thing. Listen, anyways, you're allowed to change your team after the toss, right? What inside information?
Yeah, what
could you-
inside information? What is the
Who's
information?
who's not playing? Anyways, you're allowed to make your team after the toss. So I don't know how would you define inside information that would help
Yeah,
in this.
actually, brilliant point. What constitutes inside info? Like today, Pakistan versus New Zealand, I played based on the experiences of the last two games. I did not have Devon Conway and Glenn Phillips, and I lost. I lost. That is fantasy. As we are speaking, Perth Scorchers versus the other team, Mitchell Marsh plays a brilliant innings. I lost. So that is the name of the game. You go. What is inside information, boss? There is no inside information. It is skill set. Pick your team based on what you read. Do your research. Then go pick your team. And if you play blind, people say, "Nah, it's luck. It's betting. It's this and that." एक बार रिधिमा खुद का पैसा है ना, खेल के दिखाओ यार ब्लाइंड और जीत के दिखाओ मुझे। 100% हारोगे। मैंने ब्लाइंड खेल के देखा है। 100% आप हारोगे बिकॉज वन प्लेयर हु इज नॉट इन योर स्किल सेट आपने ब्लाइंड खेल दिया, आप हार जाओगे। इट्स अ डिफरेंट बीस्ट। Try and learn the beast, enjoy the beast, learn the knowledge, get the knowledge, and play fantasy. You'll love it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. Thanks a lot. That's all the time we had. And I have to say, along with it being a very interesting session, it was a very educating session for me with Vidush on board. Thank you so much, Vidush, for joining us on Sports Today. Thank you, Burida. Thank you, Deep. And thank you, everyone, for joining on Sports Today. All the comments here. Sorry we couldn't take them today because we had some clarifications to make. And I hope your doubts were cleared with this particular show. Stay tuned to Sports Today. Many, many more such content coming your way.
Thank you.